Hey, if you're into hard rock and heavy metal, this show is for you. We're going to do one of my favorite things we do on this channel, and that's we're going through an old rock magazine. And this is part two. We went through the first half of this, I don't know, a week or so back, and now we're going to go through the second half. This is RIP magazine from, what was it, February of 1988. And then we left off right here where we have Vince Neil and David Coverdale, who has apparently had a fight with hairspray and a wind tunnel. It's so funny. There was a time in my life where I actually I thought that kind of look was really cool. And I don't know why. Today, looking at it, it's really funny. So anyway, let's get going through. There's David Coverdale again. I used to love David Coverdale. I loved Whitesnake. This would have been during that 1987 period where they had that kind of self-titled album. That album was so popular. It was it was everywhere. Here I Go Again was just one of the biggest. I think it was maybe the biggest song in the world that year. It was incredible. And I think I mentioned this in the other video, I'm not sure, but I know a lot of people, that was such a huge hit song, but don't realize that was actually the second time they'd put that song out on an album. They had actually recorded it years earlier on a different album, and it just didn't go anywhere. Then they redid it for this album in 1987, and then it just absolutely took off. Anyway, there's David Coverdale again. And then let's see here. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at. Vision, something related to skateboarding. And then more skateboarding over here, Skate of the Month. By noon, I'm vacating my tent, myself to join violently charged. Interesting. Harsh Vibes, an interview with Corey O'Brien. Oh, I recognize that name, Tony Hawk. I don't know a lot about skateboarding other than that. There's more skateboarding here. And then the Cro-Mags, they were kind of what was like a thrash metal band, a heavy metal kind of. Anyway, I really don't remember much about them. Oh, now we have Rush here. This is the Hold Your Fire time period, and that's the one that had the Time Stand Still, and that was actually such an excellent piece of music. And that was the one that had, we actually did not a video, we did a post on, we made a little post because I put a post on YouTube where we have the little 45 RPM, and it's for the song Time Stands Still. And Amy Mann from Till Tuesday is the one that sings that female part in it, and it is so like angelic. It was actually a really excellent song. The lyrics are profound. The execution it's so good. And then Geddy's playing one of those Steinberger basses. I remember when these things came out. First time I ever saw one, I saw Journey in concert, and Ross Valerie was playing one of these things. It was on the Escape tour. So that would have been 82 when I saw it. And I think that was the first time I'd ever seen one of those things. I'm pretty sure that's the first time I saw it. Correct me if I'm wrong if they came out, if it wasn't at that point. But I remember the first time I saw them, it was with Journey. And it was Ross Valerie playing one. I actually tried playing a Steinberger guitar that was like that. I couldn't play it. Actually, the action, the whole guitar, the way it felt was fine, but it was so light that I just couldn't. I couldn't control the thing, and so I actually didn't like it very much. There's the Professor. Let's see what's next. There's Alex. Cool. We're gonna go back some time. I've talked a little bit about this on this channel, but we're gonna start having a regular segment that's like scheduled for these magazines. And I think we're gonna go back and actually look through some of these interviews. Because there's this great interview here with Geddy Lee, just kind of exploring it and looking what he had to say would be really interesting. And they had these 80s haircuts. Look at that. When Rush had this, look at that 80s Flock of Seagulls. They really had that. It's really funny watching how how Rush kind of morphed over the years. It's pretty interesting. There's not a lot of bands where you have the same guys decade after decade, and then you can kind of watch how the three of them just kind of change over time. It's pretty interesting. Santa Cruz Skateboards. So this is some sort of band, and they're interview or promoting Santa Cruz skateboards, I guess. Interesting. Oh my gosh, Surfing with the Alien. Do you remember that? When Joe Satriani put that out? I'm assuming he's had other solo albums. I don't know. I've never followed him close enough, but I do remember this one. I remember when this album came out, and that I think it was the first song on the album was called Surfing with the Alien. And it was just really, I don't know what it was. It was actually, for an instrumental tune, it was actually catchy. And it was cool. I mean, he of course he was, a master, and he's just kind of been around and a really important part of guitar playing for a long, long time. The sound for Fernandez guitars. I know absolutely nothing about Fernandez guitars. If you know about Fernandez guitars, if you ever owned one, be interesting to hear about that. I mean, yeah, I don't know anything about it. And then over here we have Marshall Jubilee bass amplifier. 600 watts. Yeah, that put out a little bit of sound. So what does it have here? Is that 4 10s or 4? Because these have got to be 15s, right? Although that's not necessarily true, because I remember, what were those amps? The Ampegs, those big tall Ampegs, and I think all they had in them was 10-inch speakers, if I'm not mistaken. But man, those things could put out some sound. So anyway, that's interesting. I've never didn't know anything about that. So here we have Jackson locking tremolo system, and these were actually, it's got to say it in here somewhere. These were actually made by Floyd Rose. There we go, right there. And the only reason I know that is that's a Jackson back there on the court, although that's a newer one. But if you look at the tremolo, it says Jackson, and then right underneath it, it says something like by Floyd Rose. Let's see here. Ludwig drums, Whirlwind. Never heard of, I don't know of Whirlwind cables, even if they're still made. These things were so interesting. Kind of weird, those synthesizers that you'd play like a guitar. I always thought that looked so strange. Like we have to get out in front of people, so I've got to make a portable keyboard because I have to be standing out front with the guitar players, at least at some point in the show. So this looks like available on LP and cassette. These must be like Beware. Okay, Beware Records. This is so interesting. I'm curious, did any of you ever just see because I'd never heard of any of this stuff. But did you, and I'm not sure how many people would have back then, but then they'd put these advertisements in these magazines from some unknown record company or lesser known, and then hoping people would just mail in. Distributed. Send self-addressed stamped envelope for the complete deluxe catalog. Did anybody watching this ever do this stuff? It'd be really interesting to find out. I never did anything like that. But you'd see these kind of things in these magazines all the time, these ads, just telling you to mail something in to get a catalog or to order something. So tell us about the first time you fell in love. Lizzie Borden, Paul Stanley, Tom Hamilton, Rick Savage. It looks like somebody got to this magazine before I did. Although it doesn't look like it was anything super important. Whoever cut it out, it was important to them. Then Mike Tramp, Gary Moore, Tony McAlpine, Mike Roche from, Don Dokken, right there. All answering the question. What was the question? Tell us about the first time you fell in love. Yeah, like I said, we'll go back and read these sometimes on camera because that will be actually interesting. Records. So this is Suicidal Tendencies. Do you remember them? They were a punk band. I used to see, there was always some kids at school that had t-shirts on for them. And I heard them a few times. They had some cool stuff. I think they actually had one song that actually got fairly popular at one point. But that was... But look here again, album inquiries. Tell you where to make check or money order payable too. And then you just mail it in, and just say, hey, please send me whatever. Just so interesting because it's so... because it's kind of unclear. What do you do here? And it tells you how much. Yeah, so I guess you just put a note in there with your check and say, send me stickers. That's pretty interesting. Rock Vault. So this looks like some sort of trivia. Can you name the only member of the... Okay. Can you name the only member of the who toured as a solo act? I'm guessing that's Pete Townsend, since he had a bunch of solo records. I don't know the answer to that. This is pretty interesting, though. Come On Feel the Noise was a number 5 hit for Quiet Riot in 83. Can you name the British band that performed the song originally? Can you name that? Hint, Quiet Riot actually used another one of their songs on their next album. What is the proper pronunciation of Little Richard's Tutti Frutti Awa Baloo Bapa? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Anthrax! So this looks like an interview with Charlie Banante. He's an interesting guy. Like I said, we're going to go back sometime and read some of these, go through these interviews, because this would be so much fun to do. I saw Anthrax open up for, I think it was Kiss. And I didn't know much about them when I went and saw them. And yet it was so crazy. They were such a fun band. And I'll tell you something, Aerosmith and Run DMC get so much, when they had that kind of crossover song when they did Walk This Way. The true rock crossover song, the one that was really, truly awesome. Because I won't go out of my way to listen to that Run DMC Aerosmith thing. It was a novelty thing. It was fun. If you already liked Walk This Way, it was fun to listen to. The true one, the true crossover was Anthrax and Public Enemy when they did Bring the Noise. And if you've never heard it, you must, after you watch this video, go find Bring the Noise. It is so just awesome. I remember the first time I heard that, I thought that is just one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life. It was so great. I had somebody give me a cassette tape of Attack of the Killer Bees, Anthrax, and it was just, the music is just so, it's fast and it's heavy and it's kind of crazy fun too. They were just really, really unique band. I just kind of always dug them. And actually, anyway, they were really cool. So Team Streetwear, some sort of skateboarding thing. Did you skateboard when you were younger? Looks like this Rip magazine was kind of a big skateboarding thing. Dear Mon Nuge. I saw this. Was this on the front cover? I heard about this or saw this somewhere. No, it's not on the front. I remember hearing about this because I don't remember where I saw it. But this is literally Ted Nugent's mother. And you'd write into her and ask her questions or something, and then she'd give, it was like a Dear Abby advice column in Rip magazine, and it was Ted Nugent's mom, which is hilarious. It's so funny. And this would be a fun thing to come back and read sometime. And I guess that's her. And what is this? Looks like a Sasquatch or something holding that she's standing in front of. I don't know. But that's what this is. It's like Dear Abby, but it's actually Dear Mon Nuge. That is so wild. Let's see here. Then we have Yngwie Malmsteen. It's exciting to create your own sounds. Seems like the more I played, the more dedicated I became, but what made it easy and then I thought was so much fun, and that's the real blah, blah, blah. I have no idea what this... I've seen these ads before. I don't even know what it's for. National Association of Music Merchants. I don't know. And there you go, Malmsteen. Aerosmith, AIDS and the Rock and Roller. So if this is 88, this was on during the Permanent Vacation time. We actually did a video for Permanent Vacation on this channel. Sometime in the last week, I think we put it out. I loved the album Permanent Vacation. I thought it was so amazing because I told this story, and I won't tell it again, but I had Done with Mirrors, and not a lot of people were paying attention to them at the time, and I got Done with Mirrors, and I loved Done with Mirrors. And then when Permanent Vacation came out, I was expecting more of that Done with Mirrors kind of stuff. No, it was not like that at all. It was a totally new twist on Aerosmith, and yet I just absolutely fell in love with it. Let's see here. So Steven Tyler, there's the band. Attention Singers. So this is Jim Gillette's Proud to Be Loud, like some sort of singing lessons. And I remember this guy, Michelangelo, with this double 2-direction. Didn't he play with some band? This album contains... Oh, this is great. This album contains the highest screams and the fastest guitars ever recorded. Listen at own risk. So it looks like over here, they're selling an album, and over here, they're selling singing lessons by this guy. And I know nothing about Jim Gillette. Did he sing for a band and I'm being really clueless right now? Tell me, because I don't know. But he is going to teach you how to be a metal singer. There's more Charlie Banante. I saw, like I said, he's a really interesting guy. I saw him do an interview. I watched an interview not long ago. I think it was filmed a long time ago, though, but I just saw this interview where he was talking about when he joined Anthrax. And he talks about Scott came over to do this audition or play with him, and he asked him if he knew how to play Fast as a Shark. Now, we've talked about that on this channel before, that song and the band Accept. And it was interesting listening to him talking about it because that song and that album became such a touchstone for so many people that got into that kind of speed metal thrash thing that just took off around that time. But like I said, I know I've talked about it several times on this channel, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it again. The experience that I had when I first heard Restless and Wild by Accept and the song Fast as a Shark. Anyway, he talks about that when he heard that song, and then when Scott came over to interview him or do the audition to be in Anthrax, he asked him, "Do you know how to play Fast as a Shark?" Because that song and that band at that time was such a big deal, especially kind of underground. People who were in the know knew all about that Accept album, Restless and Wild. And if you've never heard it, not now, after we're done with this video, go look up the song Fast as a Shark by Accept. It is so amazing. And especially when you put it in the context of the time, because I think it came out in '83. And then actually that whole album. So I really like Accept. I have a bunch of their albums, but for my money, Restless and Wild is the best thing they ever put out, and it's just song after song after song. It's just great stuff. Anyway, I just was thinking about that because Charlie Banante, I saw an interview where he talked about what an impact that song had on him. And it was similarly, although I never really got into a thrash band or kind of the speed metal, I never played any of that stuff. To me, still, that had such an impact on me and the music that I loved and the stuff. Anyway, kind of a big deal. So cool stuff. Like I said, we'll come back at some point and go through these interviews. Welcome to our jungle. Yeah, it's funny. After we did the first half of this magazine, a bunch of people put in the comments that somehow Guns N' Roses had actually done some advertisements for RIP magazine, and here you are. 40% off the newsstand price if you get a subscription to RIP magazine today. Yeah, see, okay, here's another one of these. Road Racer Records, the Hard and the Fast. And I guess there's the address. Gangrene, Whiplash, Carnivore. I don't know anything. I've heard somebody mentioned Cat, I think the last time he made one of these videos, which I know nothing about them. Internal, nothing, don't know anything about them. Blessed, nothing. King Diamond, of course, know of King Diamond, but that's the only thing in there that I know anything about. So did any of you ever hear of these bands? Did you ever follow them? Did you ever order one of these records online like this? Opal, Happy Nightmare Baby. I don't know anything about. So I'm guessing the band is called Opal, or it's a person. Similarly, don't know anything. If you know anything about this, who this was, and it's worth checking into, let me know. It's kind of the cool thing about these videos. A lot of these videos, the comment section in these videos gets to be really, really actually not just interesting, but useful. Because people will put down there, hey, you need to check out this band, this song. I've been actually, since really this channel really started taking off, that's happened with me a lot. People point out, hey, you need to go listen to this, you need to go check this out. And it's actually even spurred on a couple of videos that we've done, just things that people have recommended. Yeah, we just did one a couple nights ago that we released that was King's X. And it was just a bunch of people had recommended we do a video about them. When I had a friend, Gary, who comes in here who was already into them, but I'd never really listened to him. So then I spent a day listening to their stuff and was just blown away how much I loved them. And so we ended up doing a video about them. So yeah, so that stuff, it's actually pretty useful. Putting information. Armored Saint, I'll be honest with you, I knew a lot about, I knew of them, but I knew nothing about them. But I knew that I heard about them a lot. Because you'd see their name around. And that's another thing that we're planning on doing on this channel, is doing kind of a regular focus, an episode on a regular basis of picking some band like this that was semi-popular, but never really caught into the mainstream. Bands that probably, where they never had an album that went gold, because maybe they did and I just don't know about it, but there were a lot of bands that had these big followings and did pretty well, but none of their albums really ever hit that gold status. They were just, which kind of kept them a little bit underground. And so, and this might apply, but we're gonna start doing doing a feature on some of those groups, because I find that stuff pretty interesting. Because there were a lot of bands that I was really into that just never, that were kind of on that level. Like Icon, I've mentioned them before. I loved Icon. King Cobra was probably one of those that I was really into. I think I've mentioned TKO before. Anyway, there were just a lot of those groups that just had some really great stuff and just never really took off, but they still had they had a following. They'd have features like this in some of these magazines, and they did okay. For all I know, they're still playing. I don't even know. But anyway, we want to start doing a feature on some of those. Zoetrope? They were on Combat Records, whoever this was. I don't know anything about them. If you know anything about them, let me know. A Life of Crime. Did I skip a page? Yes, we just skipped a page. Let's see here. Exciter. Again, another band that was kind of in that area. Let's see, going on. Oh, here we go. Here's the answers to that, the thing that we said earlier. Oh, check it out. I was wrong. I guess Pete Townsend was John Entwistle. His 5-piece band Ox toured England and America in 1975, racking up resounding financial losses. That's interesting. And of course, Slade was the band that was the Quiet Riot one. Black Flag. Yeah, they were kind of an interesting band too. Let's see here. Paul Stanley and Stephen Piercy. Of course, Stephen from RATT. It's kind of interesting. We did, almost every time we do a video on Kiss, it gets a lot of views just because Kiss is kind of a big deal. But what surprised me is we did a video on RATT not long ago, and just so many people. I've talked about this a bunch. I used to love RATT. I thought they were so awesome. So, I was going to say is by the response on that video, there were clearly a lot of people that loved and still love RATT. Original New York Seltzer. Clearly award-winning taste. This is kind of interesting when you look at the advertisements in magazines like this, who chooses to advertise in these magazines. And then the last page is Exodus. That would be another one of those groups that just kind of, he had a following, lots of people were into him, but kind of flew under the radar a little bit. So, and On Combat Records also. Anyway, this was, I'm actually interested in suggestions about, you know, if we did a feature like that or a regular video on those types of bands that, not necessarily bands that had their own kind of release that, you know, that were independent, but some of those that actually ended up on Combat Records that had these followings who would put out a bunch of records and then but never really I hope you understand what I'm talking about. You know, because a lot of people that watch this channel, if I said the name TKO, you'd know who they were, possibly. But they never really, and they played a lot of shows and toured with a lot of bands, but they just never really hit the way some other bands did. And kind of in some ways then flew under the radar a little bit. And anyway, just be interesting I want to do more videos on that kind of stuff because there is an interest, I know, with a lot of people in discussing some of those groups. So anyway, I hope you enjoy that. This is one of my favorite things to do is flipping through these magazines. It just brings back so many memories. It's so cool to go back and look at this stuff. So that was RIP Magazine. That was part 2. So if you haven't seen part 1, go back and we have another video from about a week ago where we do this. So hey, if you haven't followed the channel yet, this would be a great time to hit that follow button. Please leave your comments on any of the things that were in here that you remember, your thoughts and input on that, and also like the video. And something, we get a lot of people sending us emails now that go to the website because we have a contact form there where you can contact us. And just kind of commenting on things and suggesting things and asking how they can help. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest ways you can help this channel grow is just share it. Because if you're interested in this stuff, I guarantee you know a handful of people that are also interested in this kind of stuff. I mean, if I started thinking, yeah, I could probably come up with about 12 people that are still in my circle of influence, or friends of mine from way back when, or people that I know now that would probably dig this, and you probably do too. So just go throw it on your Facebook page, X, Twitter, email it to some people, message it to them. Anything like that's actually a really helpful way to keep the channel continuing to grow. And we have so many cool things. Sometime in the next few weeks, I'm guessing when we get into April somewhere, we're going to start putting out a schedule so that if you're interested in this particular type of video, you'll know when they're coming out, so that everybody kind of knows what's going on, because we get so much interaction on these different videos, but it is a little bit of we're just kind of throwing things out right now, and we kind of have a sense of what people are interested in, and so we're going to start putting out, letting you know when certain things are going to be coming out, so that you'll have a better idea of what the schedule is. So anyway, hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this today, and I hope you have yourself a fantastic day.